shit, that's what they won't do. I don't wanna know you, kick me to touchy and social. Cold roller come smoke you, you get split with your bro too. They said they gon' show you, they went from bullets gon' shatter a ligament, talking the book, but they chat. J in a box for the menacing young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the red, you can't see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, and Jason, I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why I do Chevy, they split the dividends. Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, talking the book, but they chat. J in a box for the menacing young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the red, you can't see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, and Jason, I'm digging it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why I do Chevy, they split the dividends. We keep the knocks in the beamer, dropping the queens, we flocking the leaders. Free flea on G's, the reaper, creeper, booting and turning my speakers. Link up, she a believer. Shorty gon' kick it like FIFA, feeding the meters. Drip got me leaking, G be the reason. I see the jakes, I'ma leave him. We don't know Sosaki. City keep knocking, he close to me. Missed this top, made his shoulder bleed. 40 clip hang like a rosary. Cole Brown is the Joe boy. Spin through the opposite, I might hit a coke boy. Hit coach, that's the ghost, no Rolls Royce. Stay in the chair, that's folks, he got no choice. I see an eye, I'ma chase him. There's no structure, that's for all situations. I've been on this app waiting, breach shit, put it on your head, you a patient. Folks in the drop top speed and opt out passenger, kids stop cheesing. Funds play, they not freezing. Stupid bitch drop the top, let the breeze. Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, talking the book, but they chat, they predicaments. J in a box for the menacing young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the red, you can't see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, see Jason, I'm digging it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why I do Chevy, they split the dividends. Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, talking the book, but they chat, predicaments. J in a box for the menacing young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the red, you can't see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, see Jason, I'm digging it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why I do Chevy, they split the dividends.
My name is Tara Schick, and I'm super excited to talk to you all about kind of what we're debuting with the Pegasus 37. The 37 is amazing because the update was pretty gigantic for the Pegasus. The midsole, that's really where the newness starts. The entire midsole is made up of React foam. It is lighter, more responsive, and more durable than that catch-all foam. The bag you see in the 37, it's more than 2 times thicker than the previous bag. It does not necessarily mean you go 2 times faster, but we know that you get more. It's more than 2 times.
Drop out, watch for pothole. It's fast called by home and drop flow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe. See me acting no shoe, my eyes closed. When the window drop, eyes out too. Shout out to fresh, you guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357 don't flame when I shoot. I'ma show how fast the life is. Whole gang short shit like a cipher. I just might turn to a lifer. Digging the dicks, go park at a hydrant. Whole gang evil, we fasting. See me in traffic, don't like when I'm passing. Pretend you was making distractions. And we parolees with bands in our mattress. Kick works, you know that's the get back. Text in my group, but it's not for the chit chat. Brand new clip, bullets mismatch. Too many shots, he don't know where he hit at. My older gon' do it for free. Get capped like a 6, I might call money G's. This 40 gon' kick like a beat. Welly away overnight for the breach. Now she wanna get it the fast way. She know these niggas is mad fake. I could call Rose a rampage. Clip with an Ike in the ashtray. I slapped his wife on my bad day. She always lurk on my fan page. Knocks around, you know how they play. Get shot, you step on this landscape. Kick them over the pistol social. And I just made a little bridge you're opposed to. Daddy Spice do what he supposed to. Whole lot of knocks in this crib, I parole to. This 40 gon' bump like the beat. You know what that mean? We in the stool in the street. Them demons keep spinning and spinning, so don't get a problem. Them shots will repeat.
Know we the outs. I really ain't know me for drops. She gon' walk in the spot cause she know that I'm hot. See the oldest hang.
He's on board.
Drop by watching for pothole. It's fast called by toll and drive slow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe. See me in action, no shoe, my eyes closed. When the window drop, bodies out too. Shout out to Freshie, both guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357 don't flame when I shoot. I'ma show how fast the life is. Whole game short shit like a cipher. I just might turn to a lifer. Digging the dicks, go park at a hydrant. Whole game evil, we fasten. See me in traffic, don't like when I'm passing. Pretend you was making distractions. And we parolees with bands and our mattress.
Kick works, you know that's the get back. Texting my group, but it's not for the chit chat. Brand new clip, bullets mismatched. Too many shots, you don't know where he hit at. My older gon' do it for free. Get capped like a 6, I might call money G's. This 40 gon' kick like a beat. Welly away overnight for the breeze. Now she wanna get it the fast way. She know these niggas is mad fake. I could call Rose a rampage. Clip with an Ike in the ashtray. I slapped his wife on my bad day. She always lurk on my fan page. Knocks around, you know how they play. Get shot, you step on this landscape.
Kick them over the piece to social. And I just made a little bridge you're opposed to. 90 Spice do what he supposed to. Whole lot of knocks in this crib I provoke to. This 40 gon' bump like the beat. You know what that mean? We in the stew in the street. Them demons keep spinning and spinning. So don't get surprised when them shots will repeat. And I don't even know what to think. Might go to the bank and then take a shortcut. And just send me my birdie. Don't leave me do splitty. I won't take a shortcut. And we gon' hop with the V. Don't cap with your team. Gon' flock where we post up. And it's just me and Balessi do drill out the renty without moving more sus.
3 a.m. I put a cash out. PO just lit, so I might gotta max out. All this breach, I'ma back out. Brand new V4 Matic when I backed out. They know for spinning them blocks. She won't kick me to piece cause she know we the ops. At Welly, they know me for drops. She gon' walk in the spot cause she know that I'm hot. See the oldest hanging out of that coupe. Beam on the joint, help me out when I shoot. And lately I'm not in the mood. Don't hit my line if it's not for some food. And I don't even know what to do. Hit the bank of the stew in the booth and my piece hit. All these deposits recent. Get to the breach and I flip it with demons.
Drop by watching for pothole. It's fast called by toll and drop slow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe. See me in action, no shoe, my eyes closed. When the window drop, bodies out too. Shout out to Freshie, both guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357 don't flame when I shoot. See the oldest hanging out of that coupe. Beam on the joint, help me out when I shoot. And lately I'm not in the mood. Don't hit my line if it's not for some food. And I don't even know what to do. Hit the bank of the stew in the booth and my piece hit. All these deposits recent. Get to the breach and I flip it with demons. Run up in the spot with a breeze at. We in the rented with 3 straps. Fast in the trolling where we at. 30 fat don't make you lean back. Pull up, we exhaust the extortion. Dottie maxed up for a portion. Don't make my shooter go fox. If I spin it, end up in a palm box. Got some hats in the X, we got mob ties. Richie pull up and let shots fire. Bitch, we got knocks and we outside. Better be lucky you got by. Told them watch out for the get back. I went to jail, it's a setback. Mary and Gucci shit mix match. I'ma get money, just sit back. Me, Chris and Valencia on all handshake. Get shot, you step on this landscape. Treat y'all up on my fan base. Kick me to touch it, a Welly and Jace. I cannot end up in last place. Ain't no skills for your moolah to campaign. You will get popped like some champagne. Hurry girl left in a Rory with fast gang.
They know it's for spinning them avenues. She gon' kick me a piece when she mad at you. I only did what I had to. Houdini would cause my deposits is magical. You could tell these ain't no average. Gotti tossing like a lateral. Like why they brought all them ratchets? Why do they moving so tactical? Like who that, you that, woo back. My niggas don't do that, shoot that. Y'all got guns, don't use that. True fact, shoot back. Y'all don't do that. I'm on T for the piece with 2 straps. Chris about to toss out, move back. Don't come with a stick like a pool rag. Used to have shooters where they used to.
I don't fuck with no sports, I love catching a penalty. Jacket people, my man's your enemy. Put the chop in my hands is a killer spree. I had to pop a little perk for the energy. I don't fuck you not a fan of my verses, you catch it. Got to knock her pants, her purse, her jacket. Pull up on you like fuck you, Jack. Never fight with a fool, just back up the ratchet. G hit a 6, better pick a few. MIS stay on time, quick to get at you. Chris the lead on the scene is getting critical. If you smoke my dead, then I'm killing you. Stop a beat and go flock at the dammers. Bitches talking and sucking the scammers. I ain't spinning my block with no hammer. Last nigga got shot up on camera. Yeah.
I pop a perk, now I'm off beat. I'm Mary, I throwing an off-white. We doing foul free offside. I got the 40 and shoot off from court side. Go broke down, robbing the dice game. And we take no chance, we dig when the lights came. Got a bad little bitch and see light skin. Walk in the party, we getting them pipes in.
Had to free bro for that weapon. That's his first, it's my second. I ain't worried about a sentence, but my way posted in second. It's either clear or independent. How about the foreign? I'm staring and bending. Weapon passed to her best friend. Jeans by Mary, Tesla the engine. Weapon passed to her best friend. Jeans by Mary, Tesla the
Your
engine.
man got shot, now he walk with a limp. Little bitch shit pop, said I walk like a pimp. God giving me top, y'all fuck up friend. Right past me the chop, throw the gloves on my hand. Then that boy got shot, I took all his pants. Had to dip on the cops, that was part of the plan. Little nigga moving hot, shot him and his friends. Free all of the bros, free T out the pen. Little nigga moving hot, shot him and his friends. Free all of the bros, free T out the pen. Yeah.
Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, open the book, but they chat, they Testament. Jay in a box for the menacing young folks just came for the knocks, go spin it in. At the Reggie kids, see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, see Jakes and I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends. Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, open the book, but they chat, they Testament. Jay in a box for the menacing young folks just came for the knocks, go spin it in. At the Reggie kids, see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, see Jakes and I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends. We keep the knocks in the beam, and dropping them queens, we flocking the Adidas. Free flea on chest, the reaper, creeper, booting and turning my speakers. Link up, she a believer. Shorty gon' kick it like FIFA, feeding the meters. Drip got me leaking, she be a reason. I see the Jakes, I'ma leave him. We don't know Sosaki. Sick, keep knocking, he close to me. Miss this hot, made his shoulder bleed. 40 clip hang like a rosary. Cole Brown is the chill boy. Spin through the option, I might hit a coke boy. Hit coach, that's the ghost, no Rolls Royce. Stay in the chair, that's folks, she got no choice. I see it out, I'ma chase him. There's no structure, that's for all situations. I've been on this app waiting, appreciate. Put it on your head, you a patient. Folks in the drop top speeding, I've got passenger, kids stop cheesing. Funds play, they not freezing. Stupid bitch drop the top, let the breezing. Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, open the book, but they chat, they Testament. Jay in a box for the menacing young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the Reggie kids, see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, see Jakes and I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends. Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, open the book, but they chat, they Testament. Jay in a box for the menacing young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the Reggie kids, see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, see Jakes and I'm digging it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends.
Virgie, Queen Evil. That was nice of you, Queen.
My oldest, they spinning shit, no, they ain't missing.
That was so nice of you, Queen Evil. That was the nicest thing you ever did, Queen Evil. I see you working on it. You working on it. That's good. Not so evil.
Angel on the board.
Drop out, watch for pothole. It's fast call by toll, and drive slow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe. See me in action, no shoe, my eyes closed. When the window drop, bodies out too. Shout out to fresh, you got guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357 don't flame when I shoot. I'ma show how fast the life is. Whole game short shit like a cipher. I just might turn to a lifeless. Thinking the dicks go park at a hydrant. Whole game evil, we fasting. See me in traffic, don't lack when I'm passing. Pretend you was making distractions. And we parolees with bands in our mattress. Kick works, you know that's the get back. Texting my group, but it's not for the chit chat. Brand new clip, but it's mismatched. Too many shots, you don't know where he hit at. My older gon' do it for free. Get capped like a 6, I might call money G's. This 40 gon' kick like a beat. Welly away overnight for the breeze. Now she wanna get it the fast way. She know these niggas is mad fake. I could call Rose a rampage. Clip with an Ike in the ashtray. I slapped his wife on my bad day. She always lurk on my fan page. Knocks around, you know how they play. Get shot, you step on this landscape. Kick them over the piece to social. And I just made a little bridge you're opposed to. Daddy Spice do what he supposed to. Whole lot of knocks in this crib out parole to. This 40 gon' bump like the beat. You know what that mean? We in the school in the street.
Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, talking the book, but they chat. They check them and take them and chain a box for the medicine. Young folks just came for the knocks, go spin it in. At the Reggie kids, see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, and Jason, I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends. Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, talking the book, but they chat. They check them and take them and chain a box for the medicine. Young folks just came for the knocks, go spin it in. At the Reggie kids, see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, and Jason, I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends. We keep the knocks in the beam and dropping the queens, we flocking the theaters. Free flea on Jets, the Reaper, Creeper, booming and turning my speakers. Link up, she a believer. Shorty gon' kick it like FIFA, feeding the meters. Drip got me leaking, GB a reason. I see the Jakes, I'ma leave him. We don't know Sosaki. Sicky keep knocking, he close to me. Missed this top, made his shoulder bleed. 40 clip hang like a rosary. Cole Brown is the chill boy. Spin through the option, I might hit a coke boy. Hit coach, that's the ghost, no Rolls Royce. He in the chair, that's folks, he got no choice. I see an op, I'ma chase him. It's no structure, that's for all situations. I've been on this app waiting, breach shit, put it on your head, you a patient. Folks in the drop top speeding, op got passenger, kids stop cheesing. Funds play, they not freezing. Stupid bitch drop the top, get the breezing. Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, talking the book, but they chat. They check them and take them and chain a box for the medicine. Young folks just came for the knocks, go spin it in. At the Reggie kids, see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, he Jason, I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends. Bullets gon' shatter a ligament, talking the book, but they chat. They check them and take them and chain a box for the medicine. Young folks just came for the knocks, go spin it in. At the Reggie kids, see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, he Jason, I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends.
Then the bike, I'm mad, Mac, kicking the door with a stash at.
My booties, they spinning shit, know they ain't missing shit, that's what they won't do. I don't wanna know you, kick me to touchy and social. Cold roller come smoke you, you get split with your bro too. They said they gon' show you, they went from Garvey to Global.
I'm trying to activate this guy. I'm trying to turn this motherfucking cloud box shit on. Oh, I got it. I found that shit. Hold up, what is some weed, bro?
Drop out, watch for pothole. It's fast call by toll, and drop slow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe. See me in action, no shoe, my eyes closed. When the window drop, bodies out too. Shout out to fresh, go guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357, don't flame when I shoot. I'ma show how fast the life is. Whole game shooting shit like a cipher. I just might turn to a lifer. Digging the jakes, go park at a hydrant. Whole game evil, we fasting. See me in traffic, don't lack when I'm passing. Pretend you was making distractions. And we parolees with bands in our mattress.
Kick works, you know that's the get back. Text to my group, but it's not for the chit chat. Brand new clip, bullets mismatched. Too many shots, he don't know where he hit at. My older go do it for free. Get capped like a 6, I might call money G's. This 40 gon' kick like a beat. Welly away overnight for the breach. Now she wanna get it the fast way. She know these niggas is mad fake. I could call Rose a rampage. Clip with an Ike in the ashtray. I slapped this wife on my bad day. She always lurk on my fan page. Knocks around, you know how they play. Get shot, you step on this landscape.
Kick them over the piece to social. And I just made a little bridge you're supposed to. Daddy Spice do what he supposed to. Whole lot of knocks in this crib, I provoke to. This 40 gon' bump like the beat. You know what that mean? We in the stool in the street. Them demons keep spinning and spinning, so don't get surprised when them shots repeat. And I don't even know.
They're funny as shit.
Angel on the board.
Drop out, watch for pothole. It's fast call by toll, and drop slow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe. See me in action, no shoe, my eyes closed. When the window drop, bodies out too. Shout out to fresh, go guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357, don't flame when I shoot. I'ma show how fast the life is. Whole game shooting shit like a cipher. I just might turn to a lifer. Digging the jakes, go park at a hydrant. Whole game evil, we fasting. See me in traffic, don't lack when I'm passing. Pretend you was making distractions. And we parolees with bands in our mattress.
Kick works, you know that's the get back. Text to my group, but it's not for the chit chat. Brand new clip, bullets mismatched. Too many shots, he don't know where he hit at. My older go do it for free. free. Get cat like a 6, I might call money G's. This 40 gon' kick like a beat. Welly away overnight for the breeze. Now she wanna get it the fast way. She know these niggas is mad fake. I could call Rose a rampage. Clip with an Ike in the ashtray. I slapped this wife on my bad day. She always lurk on my fan page. Knocks around, you know how they play. Get shot, you step on this landscape.
Kick him over the piece to social, and I just made a little bridge you're supposed to. Daddy Spice do what he supposed to. Whole lot of knocks in this crib, I provoke to. This 40 gon' bump like the beat, you know what that mean? We in the stool in the street. Them demons keep spinning and spinning, so don't get surprised when the shots repeat. And I don't even know what the thing might go to the bank and then take a shortcut. And just send me my birdie, don't leave me do splitty, I won't take a shortcut. And we gon' hop with the V, don't cap with the team, gon' flock we post up. And it's just me and Valencia do drugs, but rent it without moving more sus.
3 a.m. up for the cash out. PO just lit, so I might gotta max out. All this breach, I'ma back out. Brand new V4 Matic without back out. They knows for spinning and blocks, she won't give me the piece, cause she know we the ops. At Welly, they know me for drops. She gon' walk in the spot, cause she know that I'm hot. See the Udi's hanging out of that coupe. Beam on the joint, help me out when I shoot. And lately, I'm not in the mood. Don't hit my line if it's not for some food. And I don't even know what to do. Hit the bank of the stew in the booth and my piece hit. All these deposits recent. Get to the breach and I flip it with demons.
Drop out, watch the pothole, inspect call by toll, and drop flow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe, see me in action, don't shoot, my eyes closed. When the window drop, bodies up too. Shout out to Freshie, both guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357 don't flame when I shoot. See the Udi's hanging out of that coupe. Beam on the joint, help me out when I shoot. And lately I'm not in the mood. Don't hit my line if it's not for some food. And I don't even know what to do. Hit the bank of the stew in the booth and my piece hit. All these deposits recent. Get to the breach and I flip it with demons.
Doing? What am I doing? Yo, first of all, why would you talk to me?
Bitch, we got knocks when we outside, better be lucky you got by. Told them watch out for the get back, I went to jail, it's a setback. Mary and Gucci shit mix match, I'ma get money, just sit back. Me, Chris and Valencia on all handshake, get shot, you step on this landscape. Treat y'all up on my fan page, kick me to touch it, Welly and Chase. I cannot end up in last place, ain't no still for your moolah the campaign. You will get popped like some champagne, hurry girl left in a Rory with fast gang.
They know it's for spinning them avenues. She gon' kick me a piece when she mad at you. I only did what I had to. Houdini would cause my deposits is magical. You could tell these ain't no average. You got these tossing like a lateral. Like why they brought all of them ratchets to? Why do they move it so tactical? Like who that, you that, woo back. My niggas don't do that, shoot that. Y'all got guns, don't use that. True fact, shoot back. Y'all don't do that. I'm on T for the piece with 2 straps. Chris about to toss out, move back. Don't come with a stick like a pool rat. Used to have true, that's what they used to
I don't fuck with sports, I love catching a penalty. Jacking people, my man's your enemy. Put the chop in my hands is a killer spree. I had to pop a little perk for the energy. I don't fuck, you not a fan of my verses, you catch it. Got to knock her pants, her purse, her jacket. Pull up on you like fuck you, Jack. Never fight with a fool, just back with the ratchet. They hit a 6, better pick a few. MIS stay on top, quick to get at you. Chris the lead on the scene is getting critical. If you smoke my dead, then I'm killing you. Stop a beat and go flock at the dammers. Bitches fucking and sucking the scammers. I ain't spinning my block with no hammer. Last nigga got shot up on camera.
I pop a perk, now I'm off beat. Ameria throwing an off-white. We doing foul free, offside. Doc got the 40 and short from course side. Go broke down, robbing the dice game. And we take no chance, we dig when the lights came. Got a bad little bitch that see light skin. Walking the party, we getting them pipes in.
Had to be broke for that weapon. That's his first, it's my second. I ain't worried about the sentence, but my way posted in second. It's either clear or independent. How about the foreign? I'm staring and bending. Weapon passed to her best friend, jeans by Mary Tesla, the engine. Weapon passed to her best friend, jeans by Mary Tesla, the
Your man
engine.
got shot, now he walk with a limp, little bitch. Shit pop, said I walk like a pimp. God giving me top, try fuck her friend. Right past me the chop, throw the gloves on my hand. Then that boy got shot, I took all his pants, had to dip on the cops, that was part of the plan. Little nigga moving hot, shot him and his friends, free all of the bros, free T out the pen. Little nigga moving hot, shot him and his friends, free all of the bros, free T out the pen.
Whiskey K.
Run up in the spot with a breeze at. We in the rental with 3 straps. Fast in the trolling where we at. 30 fat don't make you lean back. Pull up, we exhaust the extortion. Dottie maxed up for a portion. Don't make my shooter go fox. If I spin it, end up in a palm box. Got some hats in the X, we got mob ties. Richie pull up and let shots fire. Bitch, we got knocks when we outside. Better be lucky you got by. told him watch out for the get back. I went to jail, it's a setback. Amiri and Gucci shit mix match. I'ma get money, just sit back. Me, Chris and Valencia on all handshake, get shot. You step on this landscape. Treat y'all up on my fan base. Kick me to touch it, Welly and Chase. I cannot end up in last place. Ain't no skill for your moolah, the campaign. You will get popped like some champagne. Hurry girl left in a Rory with fast gang.
They know it's for spinning them avenues. She gon' kick me a piece when she mad at you. I only did what I had to. Houdini would cause my deposits is magical. You could tell these ain't no average. You got tossing like a lateral. Like why they brought all them ratchets to? Why do they move it so tactical? Like who that, you that, woo back. My niggas don't do that, shoot that. Y'all got guns, don't use that. True fact, shoot back. Y'all don't do that. I'm on T for the piece with 2 straps. Chris about to toss out, move back. Don't come with a stick like a pool rag. You stab, shoot, that's what they used to do.
I don't fuck with no sports, I love cash and a penalty. Jacket people, my man's your enemy. Put the chop in my hands is a killer spree. I had to pop a little perk for the energy. I don't fuck you, not a fan of my verses, you're catching. Got the knock up pants, her purse, her jacket. Pull up on you like fuck you, Jack. Never fight with a fool, just back with the ratchet. G hit a 6, better pick a few. MIS stay on top, quick to get at you. Chris the lead on the scene is getting critical. If you smoking my dead, then I'm killing you. Stop a beat and go flock at the dammers. Bitches fucking and sucking the scammers. I ain't spinning my block with no hammer. Last nigga got shot up on camera. Yeah.
I pop a perk, now I'm off beat. Amiri, I throwing an off-white. We doing foul free offside. Doc got the 40 and shoot from court side. Go broke down, robbing the dice game. And we take no chance, we dig when the lights came. Got a bad little bitch to see light skin. Walk in the party, we getting them pipes in.
Had to free bro for that weapon. That's his first, it's my second. I ain't worried about a sentence, but my will post it in second. It's either clear or independent. How about the foreign? I'm staring and bending. Weapon passed to her best friend. Jeans by Mary, Tesla the engine. Weapon passed to her best friend. Jeans by Mary, Tesla the
Your man got shot, now he walk with a limp. Little bitch shit pop, said I walk like a pimp. God giving me top, y'all fuck her friend. Right, pass me the chop, throw the gloves on my hand. Then that boy got shot, I took all his bands. Had to dip on the cops, that was part of the plan. Little nigga moving hot, shot him and his friends. Free all of the bros, free T out the pen. Little nigga moving hot, shot him and his friends. Free all of the bros, free T out the pen.
Angel on the board.
Drop out, watch for pothole. It's fast call by toll, and drop flow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe. See me in action, no shoe, my eyes closed. When the window drop, bodies out too. Shout out to fresh, go guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357.
Bullets gon' shatter with ligament, talking the book, but they chat. They catch them and J in a box for the menacing. Young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the Reggie can't see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, and Jason, I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends. Bullets gon' shatter with ligament, talking the book, but they chat. They catch them J in a box for the menacing. Young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the Reggie can't see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, and Jason, I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends. We keep the knocks in the beam, and dropping the queens, we flocking the Adidas. Free flea on Jets, the Reaper, Creeper, booting and turning my speakers. Link up, she a believer. Shorty gon' kick it like FIFA, feeding the meters. Drip got me leaking, GB a reason. I see the Jakes, I'ma leave him. We don't know Sosa Geek. Sicky keep knocking, he close to me. Mr. Top made his shoulder bleed. 40 clip hang like a rosary. Cole Brown is the Joe boy. Spin through the option, I might hit a coke boy. Hit coach, that's the ghost, no Rolls Royce. He in the chair, that's folks, he got no choice. I see an eye, I'ma chase him. There's no structure, that's for all situations. I've been on this act waiting, breach shit, put on your head to a patient. Folks in the drop top speeding, opt out passenger, can't stop cheesing. Funds clear, they not freezing. Stupid bitch drop the top, let the breezing. Bullets gon' shatter with ligament, talking the book, but they chat. They check them in. Chain in a box for the menacing. Young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the Reggie can't see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, he Jason, I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends. Bullets gon' shatter with ligament, talking the book, but they chat. They check them in. Chain in a box for the menacing. Young folks just came for the knocks, go spin again. At the Reggie can't see what the difference is. Perk got me nervous, he Jason, I'm taking it. JCC a plane, he digging it. Why do Chevy, they split the dividends.
Been a bike, I'm Mad Max, kicking the door with a stash at. My
Oldest they spinning shit, no they ain't missing shit, that's what they won't do. I don't wanna know you, kick me to touchy and social. Cold roller come smoke you, you get split with your bro too. They said they gon' show you, they went from Garvey to global.
Angel on the board.
Drop out, watch for pothole. It's fast call by toll and drop flow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe. See me acting no shoe, my eyes closed. When the window drop, bodies out too. Shout out to fresh, you got guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357 don't flame when I shoot. I'ma show how fast the life is. Whole game shooting shit like a cipher. I just might turn to a lifer. Digging the jakes, go poke at a hydrant. Whole game evil, we fasting. See me in traffic, don't lack when I'm passing. Pretend you was making distractions. And we parolees with bands in our mattress.
Kick works, you know that's the get back. Texting my group, but it's not for the chit chat. Brand new clip, bullets mismatched. Too many shots, you don't know where he hit at. My older gon' do it for free. Get capped like a 6, I might call money G's. This 40 gon' kick like a beat. Welly away overnight for the breeze. Now she wanna get it the fast way. She know these niggas is mad fake. I could call Rose a rampage. Clip with an Ike in the ashtray. I slapped this wife on my bad day. She always lurk on my fan page. Knocks around, you know how gameplay. Get shot, you step on this landscape.
Kick them over the piece to social. And I just made a little bridge you're opposed to. Daddy Spice do what he supposed to. Whole lot of knocks in this crib, I provoke to. This 40 gon' bump like the beat. You know what that mean? We in the stool in the street. Them demons keep spinning and spinning, so don't get surprised when them shots repeat. And I don't even know what to think. Might go to the bank and then take a shortcut. And just send me my birdie. Don't even do splitty, I won't take a shortcut. And we gon' hop at the V. Don't cap with your team, gon' flock where you post up. And it's just me and Balenci do throughout the rental without moving more sus.
3 a.m. up for the cash out. PO just lit, so I might gotta max out. Oldest breach, I'ma back out. Brand new V4matic when I backed out. They know for spinning them blocks, she won't kick me to piece cause she know we the ops. At Welly, they know me for drops. She gon' walk in the spot cause she know that I'm hot. See the oldest hanging out of that coupe. Beam on the joint, help me out when I shoot. Hey, lately I'm not in the mood. Don't hit my line if it's not for some food. And I don't even know what to do. Hit the bank of the stew in the booth and my piece hit. All these deposits recent. Get to the breach and I flip it with demons.
Drop out, watch for pothole. It's fast call by toll and drop flow. We keep the knocks in the Tahoe. See me acting no shoe, my eyes closed. When the window drop, bodies out too. Shout out to fresh, you got guns in the booth. See the demons jump out of that coupe. 357 don't flame when I shoot. See the oldest hanging out of that coupe. Beam on the joint, help me out when I shoot. Hey, lately I'm not in the mood. Don't hit my line if it's not for some food. And I don't even know what to do. Hit the bank of the stew in the booth and my piece hit. All these deposits recent. Get to the breach and I flip it with demons. Run up in the spot with a breeze at. We in the rental with 3 straps. Fast in the trolling where we at. 30 fat don't make you lean back. Pull up, we exhaust the extortion. Dottie maxed up for a portion. Don't make my shooter go fox. If I spin it, end up in a palm box. Got some hats in the X, we got mob ties. Richie pull up and let shots fire. Bitch, we got knocks when we outside. Better be lucky you got by. Told them watch out for the get back. I went to jail, it's a setback. Amiri and Gucci shit mix match. I'ma get money, just sit back. Me, Chris and Balenci on all hands, shake, get shot. You step on this landscape. Treat y'all up on my fan base. Kick me to touch it, or Welly and Chase. I cannot end up in last place. Ain't no still for your moolah the campaign. You will get popped like some champagne. Hurry girl left in a Rory with fast gang.
They know it's for spinning them avenues. She gon' kick me a piece when she mad at you. I only did what I had to. Houdini would cause my deposits is magical. You could tell these ain't no average. Dottie tossing like a lateral. Like why they brought all them ratchets? Why do they moving so tactical? Like who that, you that, woo back. My niggas don't do that, shoot that. Y'all got guns, don't use that. True fact, shoot back. Y'all don't do that. I'm on T for the piece with 2 straps. Chris about to toss out, move back. Don't come with a stick like a pool rag. Used to have shooters where they used to.
I don't fuck with the sports, I love catching a penalty. Jacket people, my man's your enemy. Put the chop in my hands is a killer spree. Had to pop a little perk for the energy. I don't fuck you not a fan of my verses, you're catching. Got to knock her pants, her purse, her jacket. Pull up on you like fuck you, Jack. Never fight with a fool, just back with the ratchet. G hit a 6, better pick a few. MIS stay on top, quick to get at you. Chris the lead on the scene is getting critical. If you smoking my dead, then I'm killing you. Stop a beat then go flock at the dammers. Bitches fucking and sucking the scammers. I ain't spinning my block with no hammer. Last nigga got shot up on camera.
I pop a perk, now I'm off beat. I'm Marriott throwing an off-white. We doing foul free offside. I got the 40 and short from court side. Go broke down robbing the dice game. And we take no chance, we dig when the lights came. Got a bad little bitch that see light skin. Walk in the party, we getting them pipes in.
Had to free bro for that weapon. That's his first, this my second. I ain't worried about a sentence, but my way posted in second. It's either clear or independent. How about the foreign? I'm staring and bending. Weapon passed to her best friend, jeans by Mary, Tesla the engine. Weapon passed to her best friend, jeans by Mary, Tesla the
Your man
engine.
got shot, now he walk with a limp, little bitch. Shit, pop said I walk like a pimp. I hit me top, that fuck up friend. Right past me the chop, throw the gloves on my hand. Then that boy got shot, I took all his pants, had to pick on the cops, that was part of the plan. Little nigga moving hot, shot him and his friends, free all of the bros, free T out the pen. Little nigga moving hot, shot him and his friends, free all of the bros, free T out the pen.
Gordon Hayward shows his opponents no mercy. No, seriously, he's like ridiculously competitive. Which is why he refuses to play on anything but gamer-grade internet from Xfinity.
Is your Delaware Valley Affiliate looking for attractive offers on the MDX?
The school says the athletic department has been operating at a deficit, and the financial hit of the coronavirus will only make it worse. Some of the sports being dropped include fencing, squash, and men's rowing, and big ones to me, field hockey, wrestling, and men's volleyball, which in the Pac-12 is huge. Frank, your thoughts on this and whether you think it's a sign of things to come?
It's definitely a sign of things to come. UConn last month went from 24 sports to 18. At the start of the pandemic, Cincinnati dropped sports, including men's soccer. Akron has dropped sports. But when you think about Stanford, and, when you combine athletics and academics, with all due respect to Duke, Vanderbilt, and Michael, your school, Northwestern, Stanford is at the top here. And they had been carrying 36 varsity sports. So the average is about 18. So that is a lot to finance. But when a school like Stanford is doing that, and those schools that they're dropping, Michael, they want to combine 20 national championships. So they were excellent in these sports. To me, it's a sign of things to come. I think you're going to see other schools dropping some of these programs, and it's tough. Pat Forte, whose daughter swims there, he said it's going to affect about 240 students and 22 coaches, those cuts at Stanford.
After generation after generation. And we only pay attention, most sports fans, people who call themselves sports fans, pay attention to college football and basketball.
Football and basketball, yep.
Pretty much. They may pay a little attention to college baseball. They may pay attention to certain parts of the country, to lacrosse. But Frank, we're talking about in some cases, schools carrying 19, 20, 21, maybe not as many, definitely not as many as Stanford, plus 30. But state schools and schools without the endowment of Stanford and Harvard and Yale and Northwestern, you mentioned, and Duke, what are they going to do? I'm not even sure what my alma mater is going to do about this. But every school is going to have this pinch. And when you talk about not having football, you're talking about, again, for the Power 5 conferences, a loss of $4 billion if there is no football this season. And by the way, the Ivy League has reporting is that the Ivy League is going to just not have sports at all in the fall, and then consider what, if any, to have in the spring.
Yeah, you think about men's soccer, women's soccer, field hockey, cross country. My daughter's getting ready for her season. I have a friend whose daughter plays at Colorado. She plays women's soccer. They're getting ready. It's difficult. Michael, my big thing, too, is when you think about Maryland making the move to the Big Ten, Syracuse going to the ACC, when you have these sports, not football, not basketball, having to travel by plane. Think about how much that costs. And I think that's the big problem. They should play more regionalized schedules.
And they're going to, even the ones that remain, Frank, as you point out, they're going to have to do that. It's one of the changes they're going to have to make to survive.
Yep. All right, Michael, the other big story involves former NBA player Steven Jackson, who has doubled down in his defense of Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, even after Deshaun was publicly reprimanded by the Eagles for using his social media account to post anti-Semitic messages that Deshaun attributed to Hitler. Now, Deshaun has apologized twice, while Steven Jackson said Deshaun was, quote, speaking the truth. Today, Steven went on Instagram Live and continued his hateful rhetoric toward Jews, which included him saying, quote, I haven't said one thing that's not untrue yet. All right, Michael, there's a lot to unpack here. What are your thoughts of this latest development?
Well, my thoughts are pretty simple about this, Frank. This is not tolerable. And you know, I'm never, if ever, in favor of when somebody's on an active roster of suspension or fine or firing. No. Ridicule, public ridicule. It undermines everything Steven Jackson said so eloquently on behalf of Black Lives Matter. He has no credibility now. He's undermined his own previous good work with this garbage, and it's garbage. And so I know Steven Jackson. I like him. And if I was sitting with him now, I've worked with him, I would say, Steven, stop. You're wrong. You're not speaking any truth. You're going to have to become more familiar with the truth via history. And so let's read it together. This is insane. You are ruining, you're just ruining weeks of actually trying to appeal to people on one level and then bringing your own bigotry and prejudice in at a time where no one can afford to see that. No one can afford to have it, to entertain it. Stop it. And I don't know if he has people around him who will do that or not, Frank.
No, I think you're right. You know, it speaks to ignorance and it's hateful. And I think a guy like Deshaun Jackson, because he's playing in the NFL and the Eagles clearly spoke to him. And like I mentioned, he has apologized twice. The problem is no one is getting to Steven Jackson. And you mentioned what he did the last month. George Floyd was a guy that he knew, and Steven has been out in front, and he's done a lot of interviews. You wonder if after a while, just because you're doing that, it doesn't mean you're a scholar in race relations and religion and in history. And before you're going to say something, vet it out. Do some research. Don't just throw and spew all this nonsense out there, because it's terrible for him and it's terrible for everything that he's accomplished over the past month.
It is. And Deshaun Jackson, I'll say this. I hated what I heard him say when he said it or tweeted or however he communicated it. But then more importantly than the apology to me is sort of reaching out to get people, making contact in the community that you're in with people from the community you just disparaged. And so that effort has been made, whether it was influenced or done instinctively, I don't much care. That effort has to start. But this Steven Jackson doubling down, this can't be tolerated. And someone needs to get to Steven Jackson and just say, and also people talk about educating themselves. Frank, part of educating yourself is just shutting up and listening. For everybody, for anybody who wants to educate him or herself. And at some point, he's got to do that as a place to start. And there's clearly a lot more work to be done.
And I think, Michael, too, a guy like Steven Jackson, he has a very popular podcast. It's on Showtime. And I think after a while, you kind of get caught up in it that people want me to say controversial and outrageous things. And sometimes you can say whatever you want, but there are going to be consequences.
Yeah. And the greatest consequence right now, you look at the consequence for some. Ridicule. It starts there. And so I don't know what Steven Jackson's thinking. I don't know who his influencers are. One can only hope. Adam Silver expressed concern yesterday about the possibility of positive cases arising after players and staff have entered the protective bubble environment in Orlando. Silver told Fortune Brainstorm Health, quote, what would be the most concerning is once players go through our quarantine, if we were to have any positive tests, we would know that we have an issue, close quote. Silver went as far as to say if that happened, the NBA could face a second shutdown. Frank, what are you making of this?
Well, Michael, here's the thing. Tonight, in fact, on this network, the MLS tournament is going to start. It's a World Cup style tournament, part of the regular season as well. One of those teams, FC Dallas, was sent home. And when they arrived in Orlando and they were in the bubble, more players had tested positive. So the MLS decided to send them home. Nashville was supposed to play tonight. They had players that tested positive after they arrived in Orlando. So Michelle Roberts, the executive director of the Players Association, and obviously Adam Silver, they have both talked about, they know when they get down here, there will be positive tests. But Adam is worried about something spreading to multiple teams where he perhaps would have to shut it down. It has to be a concern. We talked about it, Michael. They never should have sent 22 teams down here. They should have limited it to 16. It's a more manageable number, not 22.
Yeah, 16 if not 8. But let me start here, Frank.
Yeah.
At least the concern I hear coming from Adam Silver consistently, I think that's the only sensible, reasonable, educated approach. Like, if you just come in, this is not time to be a swashbuckler and say, here's what we're going to do, and we don't care what the results are. You can't have that. And Adam's level of concern, I think, ought to be sort of comforting to his own players and coaches and team owners and everybody else in the NBA community and the WNBA. This is a place that this has to start. These are the conditions under which we're operating, and we'll take them seriously, which we know baseball just tried to cram something in a deadline time. In football, I don't know what the hell they're thinking. And Adam Silver, to me, the only sensible approach is we're going to try this to the best of our ability. And we're not even certain if we can do this. You can't be certain. And yes, you have to operate with this degree of caution and concern. Because anybody who runs out there and says, here's what's going to happen, we're going to finish this in this time. Suppose you get multiple teams that are testing positive, that they have to be eliminated from this playoff. That would be a disaster for the NBA. It may not be for MLS. MLS is not nearly fractionally as scrutinized as the NBA is internationally. So Adam Silver and all of his lieutenants understand this, and I think this is the only way to proceed is with
Kendrick Perkins, Max Kellerman. I would just like to state for the record that, Max, I think you're slightly misrepresenting my position. While I definitely said that I don't anticipate that people will honor the bubble and essentially not have anybody in or anything like that, I don't believe they're going to honor that. I didn't use the word concern. I certainly didn't express a problem with that. I'm just saying it's reality.
All right.
Don't expect dudes to be alone for a month. That's all I said. That's all I said. I didn't say anything else.
Bubble season.
Say anything else.
All right, I'm being told we have to go. The producers are yelling at me. Perk, good stuff. More First Take after this break.
About who's the better quarterback, who do you want on your team? Lamar Jackson is third for me. Nobody's going to change that. Aaron Rodgers was on a 13-3 team. And I know what Stephen A. Well, look at the receivers that he had and all of this. The bad man sentiment that you've had for so long, Stephen A. Smith, was not the bad man this year. And I don't think he'll be the bad man going forward when you put it in comparison to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson 3 for me. That's it.
Well, you know what? I just want to say congratulations to you. I mean, listen, y'all get to live off of, apparently y'all are all Janet Jackson fans, and we ain't gonna hate on that. What have you done for me lately? We all know what Janet Jackson brings to the equation, but in the end, here's what it comes down to.
And asked them to rank the top quarterbacks in the league for this upcoming season. To no one's surprise, the now $500 million man and reigning Super Bowl MVP is secure in the #1 spot. A couple of fellow Super Bowl winners are behind Mahomes, with Russell Wilson at number 2, Aaron Rodgers at 3, Deshaun Watson 4, Drew Brees rounds out the top 5. No Lamar or TB12 in the high 5. Look who's here. Marcus Spears joining the debate desk. Marcus, this is a change. You're up first this time. So let me ask you this. Should Lamar Jackson be ranked ahead of that bad man that Stephen A. loves so dearly?
100% he should. And I know what the argument will be for Aaron Rodgers, but the bottom line is we looking at Lamar Jackson and what he's doing, and it's as good as anybody. Only 2 people I have ahead of him is Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. Look, there will be all of these questions and concerns about, can Lamar Jackson throw the football? Yes, he led the league in completion percentage. Has he had bad offensive performances or not Lamar Jackson-esque performances in the playoffs? Absolutely. But he's 23 years old, and he has time to get better at all of the facets of his game. The bottom line is this. People make an argument against Lamar Jackson because he's a phenomenal runner with the football. Since when? He rushed for 1,200 yards last year. He's with an organization that's invested in his talent. He threw 36 touchdowns, might I add, and only 6 picks last year as well. So when we start having this conversation about who's the better quarterback, who do you want on your team, Lamar Jackson is third for me. Nobody's going to change that. Aaron Rodgers was on a 13-3 team. And I know what Stephen A. Well, look at the receivers that he had and all of this. The bad man sentiment that you've had for so long, Stephen A. Smith, was not the bad man this year. And I don't think he'll be the bad man going forward when you put it in comparison to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson 3 for me. That's it.
Well, you know what? I just want to say congratulations to you. I mean, listen, y'all get to live off of, apparently y'all are all Janet Jackson fans, and we ain't gonna hate on that. What have you done for me lately? We all know what Janet Jackson. It's the throw to football. And I don't give a damn about the 66% for completion, the 3,100 yard passes, or the 36 touchdowns. I'm thinking about an ability to fling the football come postseason. What has happened? We saw him against the Chargers. It was god awful. We saw him last year against the Titans. Obviously, you look at him, and he came on a little bit, but still in all, 48% completion percentage in one playoff game, 52% the other. Come on, man, there's levels to this. And I understand that Lamar Jackson, phenomenal athlete, phenomenal runner of the football, phenomenal player, game changer, future superstar. But when it comes to the quarterback position, simply the ability to step back and fling that damn football. Stop it, Marcus. Stop it. You know what I'm going to say.
I don't even think you need to break it down that
way. Man, still. Floor is yours, Max.
I don't think you need to break it down that way. Well, compartmentalize. He can run better. He can throw better. Let's just see who's better. Quarterback record a lot of times is unfair for a quarterback. But Lamar Jackson's case, I think it's quite fair because they built the whole team around him. The offense is built around him. So if he does his thing, the team has a good chance to win. If he doesn't, they have a good chance to lose. In the regular season, do you know what his quarterback record is? Like his team's record in games he starts? 19-3 now, right? He had 2 losses and 1 loss the year before in a half season. 19 wins and 3 losses in 22 starts. Oof. And in the playoffs, it's 0-2. So, I'm sorry to oversimplify for people. Well, it's a team game and da-da-da-da-da. But if you almost never lose in the regular season, and then when you're needed the most, you haven't yet won in a small sample size, I can't put you in the top 3. Lamar Jackson's age, you're right. I mean, in terms of where he's headed, you could say, well, he's out of the pocket a lot. He might get banged up. You can't trust it long term. But then I could flip that around and say, but his passing should continue to improve. So, right, I'm not even talking about where he's going. That's hard to say, but let's assume it's still at MVP level. But that's not where he is right now when you need him the most. He's an excellent quarterback who hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs. I can't put him ahead of Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, or Aaron Rodgers, who are excellent quarterbacks who have gotten it all the way done. Marcus.
Swagoo, can I
Okay,
give this stat
so
to you, this
let me
number
ask
to
you-
you before we go on, before I come to you?
Yeah. Go ahead and do that. Go ahead and do that.
Aaron Rodgers has started 174 games in his career. His record is 113, 60, and 1. He is 53 games over 500. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. See, this is the mistake both of you are making. Y'all want me to argue if Aaron Rodgers is still good. I'm not arguing that with you. I'm telling both of y'all, I'm taking Lamar Jackson over Aaron Rodgers. Now, there are some things and reasons why I'm doing that. A big part of it is what Lamar Jackson does that Aaron Rodgers can't do. And what he cannot do is create plays better than Lamar Jackson. When we talk about trajectory, when we talk about history, when we talk about all of these things that these arguments will be based off of, if I'm looking at a football game based off of what I just saw, and maybe it's recency bias, maybe you can tell me whatever it is. I know the last person that I saw play football out of Aaron Rodgers and Lamar Jackson, I'm taking Lamar Jackson. That's the guy I'm taking. I saw Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, saw him play well. I saw Aaron Rodgers play well, have seen him play well, been on the field where he's played well enough to beat me. I don't want to play Lamar Jackson.
I got questions
Compared to Aaron Rodgers right now. No way.
We're running out of time.
No how. And stop.
We're running out of time. I got a couple of questions
telling
for
me
you.
about
I got a
throwing
couple
the
questions.
damn ball.
I got a couple
It
questions.
ain't prolific throws all
I got a
over
couple
the place.
questions.
What?
Marcus Fitz, if I got a couple of questions here. If you're a wide receiver, who do you want throwing you the football?
Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, thank you. Question number two. If you are a defensive player, come playoff time, and
Lamar Jackson,
and you need a game-winning drive, who you want with the ball?
I'm taking Lamar Jackson, Stephen A.
What?
Not changing that, bro.
What? Oh,
listen.
You just doing that to get on my nerves. You trying to set me up. You trying to get on my nerves. That don't even make no sense.
Stop.
That don't even make no sense.
Stop.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Stop. Believe what you want to believe. You can even believe that I don't believe this myself. But I'm telling you, the guy I would want with the ball. This ain't me hoping that you agree with me. I don't ever come on this show giving a damn about you agreeing with me or Max. I'm telling you what I believe,
you show some
and that's
respect.
Lamar
You watch
Jackson.
your mouth.
Hey,
all right,
listen,
let me leave you with this.
I did not learn all I
Aaron
need to
Rodgers
learn
had
about
26
this
touchdowns,
business about coming on
last
your show and
in a
Matt's
bad
show
year.
and Mila's show being scared.
What
We never want you to play scared.
You in that damn Damian Woody. You better watch your mouth.
Scared money don't make
because
no
y'all
money.
big enough to eat me don't mean y'all get the
All right,
flex
I'm leaving
like
you with
that.
this.
You better watch
Over the
your mouth.
last 3 seasons, Rodgers ranked 18th in QBR, sandwiched between Jared Goff and Jameis Winston. That's for you, Stephen A., my man. When we come back here on
what is he
First
doing
Take,
drinking? I'm the only one that's allowed to drink.
I don't know what's in that flask. I plead the fifth. NBA superstar Joel Embiid has mega concerns about resuming the season in the COVID hotbed that is Florida.
On behalf of myself, I just want to let you guys know I apologize. I didn't intend, any harm or any hatred towards any people. I'm for one. I'm for love, and I extend it every day. People that know me know I have no hatred in my heart, and I never try to, put another religion down to uplift my religion or my race. So. From the bottom of my heart, I just want you guys to understand that, and it's coming from me and my feelings, and I just hopefully everybody respects my platform, my opinion, to try to just enlighten my people, and just let everybody know that there's no hatred involved.
That was Eagles wide receiver Deshaun Jackson apologizing for anti-Semitic comments he posted. Meanwhile, in a since-deleted IG video, former NBA player Steven Jackson said the following about Deshaun Jackson's post. So I just read a statement that the Philadelphia Eagles posted regarding Deshaun Jackson's comments. He was trying to educate himself, educate people, and he's speaking the truth, right? He's speaking the truth. You know, he didn't hate anybody, but he's speaking the truth. The fact that he knows and he tries to educate others, but y'all don't want us to educate ourselves. The NBA champion Steven Jackson has been a voice for racial inequality since the death of his dear friend. Rest in peace to George Floyd. Stephen A., I'll start with you here, and let me just say that it's an honor to be a part of the show, and you guys did an exceptional job on this last segment, and I appreciate the dialogue that we're able to have here on First Take, and that we don't shy away from these issues. Stephen A., you're up first. What's your reaction to Steven Jackson kind of doubling down on Deshaun Jackson's comments?
Over the last few weeks, the most difficult subject I've had to broach is anything regarding Steven Jackson. Why? Because I'm very, very fond of him. I got love for him. He's a real brother, true and authentic to his core. And I got so much respect for him. And George Floyd was his friend. And so I understand the emotions that come with him in this particular day and time, and how, you know, how the fervor that comes with it and how passionate he is about these subjects now more so than at any other time that I can recall in his career. Steven Jackson's a good brother, but I've disagreed with him a couple of times over the last few weeks, and I disagree with him today. First of all, he needs to understand something. What truth are you talking about? Care to elaborate? Because the Jewish community is saying that what Deshaun Jackson said is not true, and he was talking about them. So what truth are you talking about? That's number one. But number two, and more importantly, and this is where this gets deep for me, Max, I think that Steven Jackson, his passion and his heart is in the right place, but he's veering away from what the ultimate goal is. George Floyd had this white cop keep his knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. For the last 2+ minutes, there was no response from George Floyd. A police officer, according to reports, actually told that cop that, and the cop still wouldn't get his feet off of George Floyd's neck. As a result, we see what has happened in our society today. So we've gone from George Floyd getting choked to death, essentially, to statues being torn down, to tweets. But all along the way, when we talk about these things and the symbolic gestures that have come along with it, our ultimate goal of really creating change to address racial oppression, racial inequality, police brutality, and those things, it's fallen by the wayside. Because these kind of things allow folks, particularly white folks, to have something that distracts us from what's really going on. Because I got news for you. Even though you might have a lighter hue, a lighter pigmentation, the Jewish community, not the white community, the Jewish community is the one that had to endure the Holocaust. When we talk about 6 million Jews that were murdered by that devil, Adolf Hitler, that wasn't white people that was murdered, those were Jewish folks. So from a categorical perspective, it's two different. It's two different groups, okay? When we're talking about racial oppression, racial inequality, and beyond, we're talking about what's happening in this nation. In this nation. Now, we might sit up there and look at the Jewish community, and Max, you have educated me about that because the perception was Jewish folks stick together, and obviously they're incredibly empowered and stuff like that. And you, as I'm sure you will do again, had to educate me about things that go on in the U.S. community and how folks feel about those things. And I stand back because I'm not Jewish, you are. But I can tell you this. When we sit up there, a lot of people in the black community respect the Jewish community because the perception of y'all being together and coming together and galvanizing to address certain issues is what we believe as a community we should do a better job of. But who is that against? It's against white folks in positions of power that have exercised racial oppression, racial inequality, and things of that nature. If you're Steven Jackson, if you are others, particularly in this moment in time, that's what our eyes were supposed to be focused on. But here we are talking about some post on Instagram and Steven Jackson validating it through his eyes and through his lens. And we're talking about that instead of what Steven Jackson himself has said he wants us to focus on. And so now, as a result, what are we going to be talking about? We're talking about Adolf Hitler. We're going to be talking about being educated about the Holocaust and the Jewish community and Jewish history. We're going to be talking about those things instead of issues that directly involve us as black people. I'm sure that wasn't Stephen Jackson's goal. I'm sure that wasn't Deshaun Jackson's goal. But it happened. And now, watch what happened.
I mean, if another...
We're going to sit up here and talk about that instead of these other things.
If another community that has experienced depression or marginalization or discrimination in various ways gets some of what you would call the shrapnel, like becomes some collateral damage in our kind of culture wars right now, and the light is shown upon the plight of Native Americans or the history of oppression of Jewish people, that's okay. That we can take some time out and say, from focusing on African Americans who are, I mean, the story of this country cannot be told without talking about our original sin as a country, which is the way that European Americans treated African Americans and Native Americans, but particularly what has been the focus recently is African Americans. And that's really this country's history. However, if the attention is diverted for a moment to say that, you know, by the way, women or gay people or Jews or some other group, this has also been their experience, and because tangentially it's related somehow, that's okay. And here we come to the classical kind of anti-Semitic issue, which is that Jews are scapegoated. And here Jews are a convenient scapegoat, and Deshaun Jackson's social media post that he thought was from Adolf Hitler was scapegoating Jews, and not in a true way at all. Like when Stephen Jackson, and I agree with you, Stephen A., some people you have a positive association with, like a strong one, you see them, you just get happy, right? Because they're just good people. That's my experience with Stephen Jackson. Love talking to Stephen Jackson, really have a real affinity for him. But when he says, when Stephen Jackson says he's speaking the truth, right? No, Stephen, he's not. He's not. What he's quoting is nonsense. It's not true. It's ahistorical. It is not part of history. Now, a lot of different people, white people who belong to different subcategories of white people were involved in the slave trade. That includes Jews. There are such things as Jewish slumlords, Stephen A. That is true. And just as there are, and Jews do benefit from white privilege in this country. White Jews, no question. I am one of them. However, Jews were also disproportionately represented in the civil rights struggle. Disproportionately represented in the civil rights struggle, among white people. As a matter of fact, Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney, right, Mississippi burning, two of them were Jewish because they were going down registering black people to vote, and like so it's not that you deny certain aspects of your culture's history. It's that you try to correct those and celebrate the good stuff. This goes for every culture. But as far as Stephen Jackson is concerned, referring to Deshaun Jackson's social media post, Stephen, none of that is true. It's simply false. And if you think it's true, you're wrong. A lot of people, Stephen, this is when I say susceptible to low quality information, lacking a formal education, people will do things like take religious texts as history books. They're not history books. There's sometimes some history in a religious text, but they're not history books. And this kind of, and if you do not vet the information carefully, you can believe something that either appeals to your kind of confirmation bias or kind of sounds right to you because you don't know how to vet the information and say, well, that's the truth, but it's not. If Stephen Jackson thinks that what Deshaun Jackson quoted is true, he's wrong.
Let me break something down. Let me try to put it in simpler terms to Stephen Jackson. For example, black folks were making a lot of noise about addressing racial inequality and racial oppression, and the affirmative action policies were born because of that, okay? Who's been the biggest benefactors or the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action? It's white women. Do your homework throughout history. It's white women that have been the greatest beneficiaries of affirmative action. It certainly hasn't been black folks. That's number one. And why do I bring something like that up, Max? Because you know what, in the newspaper industry, I recall when I was in pursuit of being a general sports columnist, Molly and Max, that's what you wanted to do. This is before the advent of social media and the .com world and all of that. We wanted to be a general columnist, a general sports columnist and stuff like that. You know how many papers we ran across that didn't feel the need to hire black columnists because there was a white person in there that ingratiated themselves enough with the black community, where the black community received them in a favorable fashion. So why do we need that? We already got black folk support and stuff like that. These are the kind of things that transpire. We're on national television right now. We work for ESPN, and I'm telling you, there are people within the walls of ESPN where we work that are happy we're having this discussion. Do you know why? So we can get off the subject of racial inequality. We can get off the subject of racial oppression. We don't want to discuss that. What did white folks say when George Floyd got murdered and then the protests and the riots started taking place? We need to listen. We need to show that we hear you. We need to get where you're coming from, and we need to be more receptive to having this conversation. But in the walls of this company, some people, the underlings, that sit up there and look at this show and resent somebody like me or you or Molly, and they sit up there and they have a problem with us. I'm telling you, they didn't want us. They didn't want us to continue talking about that. Let's talk about this, because this is about the Jewish community. This is about the transgression of a black man. This is about people co-signing that. And as a result, we get to veer away from the subject of racial oppression and racial inequality. We don't have to deal with that now. That's why I'm disgusted right now with Stephen Jackson's words. I love him,
Stephen A.
but I'm disgusted with the fact that he felt the need to comment.
When I started working at this financial services company, they had all company meetings. And on my first week, the operations VP was touting the importance of productivity.
But it is. My boy, Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman will be with me momentarily. I'm Molly Karen Rose, and you know where we're starting. That's with Showtime Mahomes and that 10-year deal. Let's get right to it, everybody. The Chiefs locking up the reigning Super Bowl MVP with a 10-year extension that could pay him up to $503 million. 31% of his contract is guaranteed, which is $140 million. He received $63 million of that when signing. Here's Money Mahomes on his fat new deal with the defending champs.
We were able to go out there and get this contract done the right way that not only gives me the security that I've always wanted, but also allows opportunity for the team to be great around me the entire duration of my career. And I have full trust that things will get handled the right way as we go throughout this career, and that we will be in a position to win a lot of football games and hopefully win a lot more championships as my career goes on.
Max, you just heard him. He had two goals: long-term security, which he's obviously got, and then financial flexibility to build a team around him. Sounds like someone else who did that, the GOAT, Tom Brady. Max, is Mahomes the best player in all of sports?
He is. First of all, in the NFL, football is a game where the quarterback can have an enormous influence on wins and losses on a team, more than anyone on a baseball team, say. So Mike Trout's the guy who jumps out in baseball. We'll just get rid of that quickly. It's not as popular a sport nationally as football and basketball. When we say sports, really, that's what we're talking about. And Trout does not have the same influence on wins and losses. Now you look at basketball. LeBron James, a lot of people still think is the best player in the world. I'm not one of them. But people say he has the throne until proven otherwise. It's not like he's clearly the best player in the world. In fact, Giannis is about to win his second MVP award, back-to-back regular season MVPs. And I believe that Kawhi is about to win his second finals MVP award. We shall see. But the point is, that's debatable. There's no debate in the NFL. Not only is it a sport where the quarterback has he's playing a position that has enormous influence on the outcome of games, but Mahomes is clearly, by everyone's estimation, you can't even find a single person who will say otherwise, he's the best player in the world at his sport, at the most important position. So now, you look at his attributes. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. He has a great arm. He's precise. He doesn't turn the ball over. He can also make those miracle plays. You know, it's not Brett Favre. He's drawing up plays in the dirt and turning the ball over. It's Brett Favre. He's drawing up plays in the dirt and has an electric arm, but he's also Aaron Rodgers because he's not turning the ball over. Also, his teammates love him. Also, he's had 2 years as a starter, 50 touchdown season with an MVP award, his first season with only 12 interceptions, follows that up with fewer touchdowns, but an even better touchdown to interception ratio after missing a couple games with injury, comes back and leads the team to a Super Bowl win. Now he's the Super Bowl MVP, all before the age of 25. And unlike Mike Trout, who's plateaued, and LeBron, who's in slight decline, he is, and Giannis, who hasn't won the championship yet, hasn't proven clutch yet when you need him most, He is ascending as already the best and has proven everything you need to see. Mahomes is number one.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you emphatically. Number one, I'm still going to sit there and look at LeBron James. Why? Because he's got a resume. Spanned 17 years, age 35, 3 championships, 4 league MVPs. At age 35 with 17 years in the league, still considered arguably the best in the world. I understand that you can sit up there and say there is no question about that regarding Patrick Mahomes. But again, it's early. Number two, 50 touchdowns his first year, 26 his second year. That's a 24 touchdown drop-off, although he missed a couple of games. And, oh, by the way, his Super Bowl, regardless of the MVP, wasn't that great for the first 3 quarters. Let's keep that in mind. Let's not act like we can just gloss over that. Number 3, football players. Again, if Russell Wilson had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, what would he be doing? If Aaron Rodgers had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, what would he be doing? If they had Andy Reid calling plays along with the weapons that Patrick Mahomes has at his disposal, what would some of those elite quarterbacks be doing? That's not to take anything away from the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. That's not a debate here. We know he's great. We know he's phenomenal. We know he's worthy of the money that he's gotten. He's a champion. We believe he's going to win at least a couple of more. He's elite. But when you talk about the divide, the discrepancy that exists, I think the only way you can definitively make those comparisons to other guys is if they had weapons equitable to what he has available to him. And then we would see what they would do. They haven't had that. We've lamented what Aaron Rodgers has had working at his disposal. We love DK Metcalf and what he can bring to the table, but we've lamented many seasons what Russell Wilson has had available to him on the offensive side of the ball. So we got to take all of those things into consideration. And what I would say to you, again, resume matters. Patrick Mahomes' first 2 years, 76 touchdowns, just 18 interceptions, completed 65% of his passes, won a Super Bowl, back-to-back AFC championship games, of course, winning the Super Bowl that second go-round. We're not questioning his immediate resume, but when you talk about the best, you're looking at a guy like LeBron James that's been around for 17 years. And, oh, by the way, the Lakers, number 1 seed in the West, 49-14. LeBron leading the league in assists, okay, in his 17th season at age 35. I'm just saying, I can't just summarily dismiss that because Patrick Mahomes has been great for a couple of years.
He's the point guard on a team with Anthony Davis. Look, you're just making an argument for the sake of argument. This isn't a lifetime achievement award. We're not talking about was that a greater career. We're talking about right now, brother, right now. And here's the difference. If I asked you or anyone who follows football, who do you want to start a franchise? Every single person is going to take Patrick Mahomes. If I asked a separate question, who do you want to start? You get one player to win the Super Bowl this year. Every single person is taking Patrick Mahomes.
Max,
it will be unanimous, both going forward and right now. It won't be unanimous with LeBron.
Can I ask you a question right now? Are you certain that that would be the answer if Russell Wilson were 24 years old and had the same weapons available to him? Are you sure it would be that unanimous with Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I don't know if it would be unanimous or not, but Russell Wilson is not 24, and he doesn't have those weapons. You can't separate all that out. When LeBron didn't have anybody, he couldn't win a championship. That's why he left Cleveland originally. You need a squad, of course. What I'm saying, Stephen A., is as a thought experiment, strip it all away. Ask anyone. Who are you starting a franchise with right now to win a Super Bowl this year? Everyone. Everyone's going to take Mahomes. And everyone will also take Mahomes to start a franchise with going forward. That's not the case with LeBron.
Ask basketball fans if they want to win a chip. Ask basketball fans if they want to win a chip. Who are they picking that they want right now?
Kawhi.
Who are they picking?
Take Kawhi.
If they want a chip.
Kawhi. Some people might take Giannis.
Okay.
By the way, a lot of people would take
on that island. You're the only one that stand on that island. You're the only one that stands on that island. You're the only one that continuously ignores the fact that Kawhi Leonard.
It's not just the ships, the armor, or aircraft. It's the will to fight and determination to win found inside every Marine. Battles won.
So, Shannon, which quarterback has more pressure on him this season, Cam
Brady.
Tom Brady. Skip, you before I go into Brady having the most pressure on him, do you ever think there's going to be a coach that says, you know what, I coached that guy, I think you should count him out? You think there's ever going to be a coach that's going to say that? Probably not.
Totally agree.
So he said, well, Ron Rivera said exactly what I thought he would say. Skip, I think it's Tom Brady, and I don't think it's Tom Brady. I know, as a matter of fact, it is Tom Brady. When you play 20 years, Skip, and you go to the Super Bowl 8 times, you win 6 of those. No, you go 9 times, you win, excuse me. You go 9 times, you win 6 of those. Tom Brady left New England for one reason and for one purpose, to win a Super Bowl and to show he could win a Super Bowl without Coach Belichick. Because he got tired of hearing, and I'm sure Coach Belichick got tired of hearing, I'm most responsible. No, I'm most responsible. No, I'm most responsible. So you know what? How about we split up and let's see who can do it first? And Tom Brady went to a situation that he felt gave him the best opportunity. Because you and others have said, last year Coach Belichick hamstrung him. He basically tied one hand behind his back. He let the team get old. His receivers couldn't run. They couldn't separate. He traded a second-round pick for Mohamed Sanu. N'Keal Harry, the first-round pick, was hurt half the year. Yada, yada, yada. So Tom Brady says, let me navigate the landscape. Who needs a quarterback? Who has weapons that I can go fill in, and they would be better than they were? San Diego, I am a Cali kid. Nah, not San Diego. Tampa. Ooh, look at Godwin and look at Mike Evans, and they got Bruce Arians, BA as the head coach. They got 2 tight ends. You know, Gronk, I've been talking to Gronk for the last couple of months, and maybe Gronk can join me. So, Skip, there's no question about this. This is all about Tom Brady, because when you have the level of success that he's enjoyed, that's the only thing that matters. It's not about 11-5. It's not about 14-2. It's not about a division. All those things, considering Tampa hadn't been to the playoffs in an extremely long time. They haven't won the division in a very long time. That's not how Tom Brady is judged. All that 16 straight, 17 straight division titles, that means nothing. It's all about Super Bowls. It's all about Lombardis. So with that being said, Tom Brady has the most pressure. Cam just has to prove he can stay healthy for a couple of years, because that's been a long time since he's done that. Skip, there's no question that Tom Brady has the most pressure.
As usual, I have no idea what you're talking about. You have really lost me on this one, because this isn't even close. To me, Cam has 10 times the pressure on him that Tom Brady has on him. And I'll explain why.
Okay, please do.
In fact, I'm happy for Cam, but I'm not sure whether to offer Cam congratulations or condolences, because he just got thrown into the pressure cooker that is trying to replace the 20-year GOAT in Foxborough, Massachusetts. And he's trying to do it while given only a 1-year deal on low pay, make good, show us, prove it to us, 1-year deal, after he just spent 4 injury-plagued years, performance-plagued years in Carolina, and the Panthers just cut him. This is sink or swim for Cam Newton. You could even go so far as to say he is playing for his NFL life this year. He has so much to prove after the last 4 years, none of which he has been the Superman that he was in 2015, 5 years ago, as he lifted that team to 15-1 and into the Super Bowl. So let's step back. What are we looking at here? Tom Brady is 30-11 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
30-11?
Yeah.
And he holds every postseason passing record imaginable, and it ain't even close. Cam Newton is 3-4 in the playoffs. I don't know if people have lost sight of that, but that's all he is 3-4 in the playoffs. And obviously, as you point out, Tom Brady has been to 9 Super Bowls, and he has won 6 of them with 6 game-winning drives. That's impossibly great. So Cam has been to 1 Super Bowl and only one, and he played, dare I say, poorly in that one. It was a defensive struggle. Peyton played even worse, but Cam did not play MVP caliber football in that 1 Super Bowl that he played in. And I can even throw back at you that in one of Tom Brady's 3 losses in Super Bowls, he set the all-time playoff passing record of 505 yards against the Philadelphia Eagles. So even in one of his losses, he was all-time great.
And one of his wins, he was all-time bad, that first one. So don't pretend like he was great. Stop.
Really?
Yeah, don't do that, Skip.
All-time bad? In the first one, he completed 5 out of 8 passes in the game-winning drive as a first-year starter in his first Super Bowl against the St. Louis Rams when John Madden's up in the TV booth saying, just shut it down. Take the ball out of the kid's hands.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So that's how we judge quarterbacks now. If they have a stretch where they complete 5 passes, that's good. Then we're good there.
It's the game-winning drive. It set up the game-winning field goal. And again, he went to third down twice in his first Super Bowl and converted both of the third downs. And so now I'm looking at a Tom Brady who, in the biggest picture, he got pushed out the back door by his coach. He didn't get cut. He just got pushed out the back door because his coach wants to prove to the world that he deserved the majority of the credit for those 9 Super Bowls and those 6 wins. So Tom Brady, now he didn't want to finish somewhere else. He was forced to. And what did he do? He shocked the NFL world by choosing to join a 7-9 team and a franchise that has the worst winning percentage of any franchise in any sport historically.
Yeah.
Worst overall. They are the Succaneers. And Brady said, oh, I think I'll go there. Nobody saw that coming. So again, to me, it would be an all-time achievement if he lifts this 7-9 team into its first playoff berth in 13 years. That franchise has not been to the playoffs in 13 years. So to me, even if he finished, let's just say he goes 7-9 this year and says, I call it quits. I've had enough. I've hit the wall at age 43. Do you think that's going to tarnish his legacy? No, it won't tarnish it 1 ounce.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Let me ask you a question. Who has the better Super Bowl on? The Patriots or the Buccaneers?
Well, that's because of the greatness of Tom Brady.
Thank you. You're making my point. So be careful how you answer these. Who has the better